So, robots in art. This topic has the potential to be enormous, the term robot being relatively loose, and yet it really is surprising how far back robots go in the history of art and the emotions they conjure from love to fear. Robots, or studies of, have been found in images from ancient antiquity. I'm not sure I really need to outline that computers and circuit boards were not really a thing in ancient society, so until the 20th century, robots, defined as a machine resembling a human being and able to replicate certain human movements and functions automatically, really were automatons. Just to note here, however, automatons aren't always required to resemble humans. As it states today, the earliest records we have of an automated machine resembling a human is the automate therapanus, or the Phylon servant. Not quite sure about that pronunciation. Approaches of the automaton would place a heavy cup in her hand, and by the force of gravity a series of valves would open, and the maid would fill the cup with wine and then top it up with water. The mechanics worked through the science of hydraulics, and used this robot/automaton really to stun party guests. There were plenty of examples of automatons throughout pre-modern history. Heron of Alexandria used steamwork to invent his automata, creating for the Greek theatre, but also supposedly coming up with the world's first vending machine. When a coin was introduced through a slot in the top of the machine, a set amount of holy water was dispensed. In the 12th and 13th centuries, Arabic polymath al-Jazari designed and built some of the Islamic Golden Age's most astounding mechanical creations. He invented a mechanized wine servant, water-powered clocks, and even a hand-washing machine that automatically offered soap and towels to its user. Da Vinci invented automatons in the form of a knight, a lion, and a self-propelling cart. In the Japanese Edo period, karakuri dolls were coming into being. They were known often to serve tea, as well as be a part of stage performances. At a similar time, bell strikers proliferated mainly throughout Europe, chiming automatically on the hour. Though a film from the 70s, Fellini's Casanova, set in the 18th century, contains a couple of automaton, one of which the protagonist has sex with. I include this automaton within this conversation for the reason that this particular line of robots very much still exists today, invented to serve the sex industry and fulfill the perversion of sleeping with a machine, whilst also avoiding the awkwardness of interacting with another real human being. The marriage of the erotic and machinery has been explored rather copiously in art, particularly around the turn of the 20th century, as well as throughout the Industrial Revolution. The eerie Fellini scene portrays the no-end Casanova's libido, as well as being a nod to E.T.A. Hoffmann's short story The Sandman, a tale in which the protagonist falls in love with an automaton. The 18th century saw a big boom in automata. Artisans were now able to miniaturize their components, and automata were able to move with more freedom of movement, thanks to the even more complex mechanisms. Thanks to an advance in technology, small artisans like watchmakers saw the magic and also the money in automatons, which appealed to the mega-rich aristocracy. Pierre Jaquet-Droz was one of the most famous of this era, making the famous three automata: the writer, the draftsman, and the musician. These three figures, made by the Jaquet-Droz family, have been said to be the ancestors of today's computers. If you find yourself in Switzerland, you can witness the three automata still functioning today. The element which made these three stand out so astoundingly from other automata is that the musician literally played her tune, the draftsman literally produced the drawing in real time, and the writer was able to write real words. The musician presses her fingers on the keys of a real instrument resembling an organ, and her head and eyes follow the movement of her hands. The draftsman is able to produce 4 possible drawings: a portrait of Louis XV, one of a royal couple, a dog with Mon Tutu written beneath, and a picture of Cupid with a butterfly-ridden chariot. He also moves his chair from time to time, as well as blows on the pencil to remove dust. And finally the writer, the most complicado of the three, with an ability to complete a custom text of up to 40 letters long. He once completed a note for the then President of France, François Mitterrand, when he visited Switzerland. Like the musician, his eyes and head follow the motion of his hand as he writes. In the 19th century, a disturbing text-to-mouth machine called the euphonia was invented, with a human face attached. Sometimes it was a torso or even a full body, but while the sound was apparently quite accurate, the machines, funnily enough, didn't continue due to their upsetting appearance. Okay, now I'm aware a lot of these robots have been the product of artisanry rather than art. So, if we zoom into the 20th century, we can look at some actual fine art. This, CYSP by Nicholas Skuffer from 1956, is not a human-resembling robot, but it does move. It has a life of its own. The robot was the first machine able to move in response to its own environment, without live active man-made control. The robot partook in several really exciting ballet performances, reacting manically to the dancers' movements. The piece of tech made it into the world of art due to its gorgeous de Stijl-esque appearance, as well as the fact, of course, that Skuffer is a sculptor. Roland Emmet is another artist of the 20th century, of a much more fanciful kind, however. Emmet, we could say, is the archetype of the eccentric Brit. He is the real-life Caractacus Potts. Emmet was actually the maker of many of the machines in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, which is all that most of us have seen of his art, despite the fact that he was creating very much for his own practice over a long career. Birmingham-based, Emmet made his magical contraptions out of his background as an aircraft designer during the war. Anyway, enough from me on this. I will let the footage speak for itself.
We are now in a world of frenetic fluctuations controlled by a random selector that Emmet calls his eeny, meeny, miny, mo unit, on which gambling is strictly prohibited. You will notice that there are two air-cooled circuits mounted in the ears of the elephantine control head above the multi-core trunk. An important feature here is memory lane with its open doors, for computers must store all the messages that arrive.
Namjoon Pike made several robots throughout his career. Sometimes they were static and sculptural, other times, like in the case of his robot K456, the work in its final iteration would be a performance. Robot K456 was made of aluminium, wire, wood, electrics and foam. The robot was made to be around human size and could walk and talk. Pike included the same robot in a few performances, but notably in his work in 1982, titled The First Catastrophe of the 21st Century. The performance was shown in video, depicting the robot getting involved in a car accident in New York. As the robot fell to the ground in the footage, someone in the background shouted out in distress, proving that Pike's robot was biomorphically familiar enough to incite an empathetic reaction. Furthermore, television was a medium Pike often worked with. Thus, by showing the piece on screen, this added another element, as the perception of the work was witnessed like we would a piece of TV entertainment. You may have seen Sun Yuan and Peng Yu's work, Can't Help Myself, which has been circulated copiously on the internet since it was shown at the 2019 Venice Biennale. The robot undergoes the Sisyphean task of clearing its boxed area of a viscous deep red liquid with a squeegee head. The unnerving element of the robot is its humanistic mode of movement. The robot squeegee, which comes to stand in its head, shakes off excess liquid as irregularly as a dog from a bath. The squeegee also moves around the space somewhat arbitrarily. There is no real system for the impossible cleaning task at hand, and occasional sudden sweeps of movement take place which eerily resemble human motion. I love artist Jordan Matthew Wolfson, and his robot work is evocative of horror, of images with associated narrative, recontextualized, and nondescript provocation. I first came across his Huckleberry Finn figure at the Tate Modern and was blown away. It was moving, it moved me. Percy Sledge's beautiful pleading ballad When a Man Loves a Woman plays, and the young boy in poorly kept rags is slammed into the floor by the chains that hold him. Every time his head hits the floor, it resounds through the room. In the Tate vaults, the slam and echo was haunting. The sculpture has motion sensor technology, like his female figure back in 2014. So the sculpture, vexing in its appearance alone, has yet another element on top of the movement induced by the chains, yet another opportunity for Wolfson to F with our heads. Okay, just one last piece I wanted to mention, a mini mention, before this video ends. So Kano and Takahiro Yamaguchi made a robot which sprays graffiti on the wall from a pair of pendulum arms. The robot isn't pre-programmed, which makes for a spontaneous result, akin to that of a human artist. Interestingly, when looking for paintings of robots during research for this proj, I struggled. The ones I did find were comic book-like, more of the graphics world than fine art. I would be mega interested to see an artist whose work depicts robots in paint without it looking illustrative or cinematic. So if you know of any examples, let me know. The art world seems entirely saturated with AI right now, and while this is entirely valid and I am pro-futural looking, it's understandably getting a bit much by inundation. There is plenty of art being made within the AI space, as well as very interesting legal conversations, like whether images made by an AI can be copyrighted. Thank you to YouTube user CL3488 for suggesting this as a topic. I realise I had requested suggestions on very many occasions and never actually taken any up. I see and hear you. Okay, I do hope I will see you next time. Thank you so much. Bye bye.